Hey guys, how's it going? Today I'm doing the AuthorTube Newbie Tag created by Jenna Streety. I'm going to link the original video down below as well as all of the questions. I figured that half the videos on my channel are writing anyways, so I might as well do this tag too. I have all my questions written down here, so if I'm looking down it's because I have a notebook right here. But let's get right into it. Question number 1, how did you find out about AuthorTube? The first AuthorTuber that I ever started watching is Bascom. I'm going to link her channel down below. Go follow her, she is so sweet and I love her so much. I think I just stumbled across one of her videos in like YouTube's recommended for you thing, but I thought she was so great. I loved her vibe and I thought she was just such a cool person. So I subscribed and started following her videos. And then how I got introduced to like the rest of the community was for Camp NaNoWriMo. Her cabin had a lot of different AuthorTubers in it and she was talking about that. And she had mentioned AuthorTube before and I just didn't quite know what it was exactly, but she was talking about that and she had kind of shouted out a handful of AuthorTubers in the past of just people she really liked, videos she really enjoyed, stuff like that. So when she made that video, I was like, okay, I'm gonna finally, check some of these people out because I love these videos and if she's recommended these people, let's see how that goes. So I started following some of those people and then it just boom from there. Question number 2, what genres do you write in? Mostly fantasy is my favorite genre, whether it's reading or writing, and I just find it so fun to write because I like creating these worlds and throwing in magic and kind of making my own rules and kind of building everything. I really enjoy that. I've written a couple other things here and there, but fantasy is always my go-to. Question number 3. What is your preferred writing tense, point of view, and category of story? 99% of the time, it's third person, past tense. I've done first person a few times. I find it only works with certain stories, and I usually like writing stories with big cast of characters, and I just find it's easy to keep track of everybody with third person. And I don't know, I just find present tense awkward almost, so I always stick with third person, past tense. And as far as category, like children's, young adult, new adult, or adult, I'd say usually adult. I just like having main characters that are a little bit older, have a little more experience under their belt. Question number 4, are you a plotter, pantser, or plantser? I am 100% a plotter, and I mentioned this in another video, but I think for fantasy it's really important to plot, especially if you're creating a whole world, because there's just so much to keep track of, and you don't want to have to contradict yourself or realize, oh shoot, I just added this magic spell that makes this giant plot hole over here, or oh, I forget how far this thing is supposed to be. Like, I always have my character sheets with all their basics, I have my world building things, any notes that I need, and I always have a map before I start because it helps me so much to be able to picture the world, and even if it takes place on a fairly small scale, I really still need a map to kind of feel like I'm in that world. And for larger scale stories, it just makes it so much easier to figure out travel and travel time and where things physically are supposed to be. So yeah, definitely a plotter. Question number 5, are you self-published, published, or yet to be published? I am yet to be published and I think it's gonna stay that way. I think that for me, writing is more of like a serious hobby than a career. I love writing, I love making stories, but I couldn't see myself doing it as a job, and honestly I don't handle rejection very well, and I just don't think I'm cut out for like the whole querying process and all of that stuff. I don't know, I just don't think it's for me, and that's okay. I write for fun and I have fun, so that's what matters. The closest thing I ever get is I do occasionally print out my novels for myself. I've printed out a couple novels through CreateSpace and I just have them set to private, so when one of my friends really wanted to read my story, I thought it was really cool to be able to actually give them a book. And I just think it's so cool to see my own books on my bookcase. Like, I have 2 of them right here. And yeah, I basically just went on CreateSpace, printed them out. Nothing fancy, like you can see it's very simple, like Google Images covers. But they're just for me and that's okay. Maybe someday if I ever write something that I'm really proud of and see like actual sellable potential in, maybe I consider it, but like I said, I just honestly don't think I'm cut out for the whole querying process and putting myself out there. I think that for me, I would just get too discouraged too quickly and then I would give up writing and then I would lose writing as fun. For me, I guess it's like dating your best friend who you only kind of have a crush on. Because you know that once you do that, you may never be able to go back to being friends, but if you think you really do have a future together and you think you really can, date and it'll work out, or it'll end in a good enough way that you can go back to being friends, even though you know it's never going to be the same, but sometimes it's worth the risk. And for me, I just like have a casual infatuation with my friend, you know, just like a cute little crush. Like I'm not in love with them, so I'm not gonna ruin our friendship just for the little crush. That was a weird analogy, but I think it kind of worked. Question number 6 is about literary agents and publishers and publishing companies, and I pretty much just covered all that in the last question, so I'm gonna skip this question. Question number 7 is what AuthorTube related videos can we expect to find on your channel? I like doing like writing vlogs and editing vlogs. I find those really fun. I like watching content of like following along on a project, like Haley Bascom's author diary or Kim Chance's WIP diaries, stuff like that. I really like when AuthorTubers have a series of kind of like, not necessarily start to finish, but you know, kind of follow them along with the progress of their writing project. I think that's really fun to watch, so I'd like to do some videos like that. I did a lot of NaNoWriMo content in November, and I plan to keep doing that in the future for NaNoWriMo, and also probably for the Camp NaNoWriMos as well. I actually have a cool idea planned out for April Camp NaNoWriMo, but I'm not going to reveal what it is yet because I still need to tweak a few things, and I want it to be a bit of a surprise, so stay tuned. Question number 8, when did you start writing? I wrote like little stories here and there when I was a kid. In grade 3, I wrote a little story. I can't remember at all what it was about, but I remember taking construction paper and pieces of loose leaf and folding them in half and stapling them so it actually made like a real book, and I just thought that was the neatest thing. And actually no, I remember what it was. I obviously never finished it because I was 8 years old, but it was like a Lord of the Rings retelling with my dad as the main character because I love Lord of the Rings, and by then I had read the book so many times, and it was always my dad's favorite book too, so I thought it'd be cool to write Lord of the Rings for him, but so he could be in the story so that he felt like he was along on the adventure. So yeah, at 8 years old I tried to write Lord of the Rings, and it didn't work out. Surprising. And then as far as like seriously writing, like writing and admitting that I was writing and committing to projects that I knew I was going to finish, I would say it was about 6 years ago, so I was 21, I think. That was when I discovered NaNoWriMo, and instead of just writing short little things here and there, I decided I'm going to write a book. Number 9, what is the first story you ever wrote? So I guess technically it would be the Lord of the Rings story I started to write when I was 8 years old, but as far as writing things that I actually finished, in middle school I wrote a lot of wrestling fan fiction. Like a lot. I was a huge WWE fan, I still am, and I would always write all these fan fictions, and sometimes I would be one of the commentators and I would just kind of like, basically just as an excuse to describe my dream matches, and sometimes I would be a wrestler and I would tag team with The Undertaker, and it was super cool. I remember there was one that it was me and Undertaker versus the Dudley Boys, and I think the first one that I like was like a decent length and that I like finished it was called WWE Raw Down, like combining Raw and SmackDown, because this was back when the two shows were very separated. So I wrote a story that they combined the two brands into one, and they couldn't decide which general manager it was going to be, and I feel like at the time it was Teddy Long and Eric Bischoff, I think. But basically they couldn't decide who the general manager was going to be, so they picked me to be the general manager, and I just wrote a giant fan fiction of me being the general manager of this new wrestling show. Question number 10, what authors have inspired your writing the most? So I guess J.R.R. Tolkien would probably be the first answer I think of, because like I said, the first story I ever wrote was about Lord of the Rings, so I guess that would be like my first introduction to writing, so I would go with him. The second one I would say is probably Garth Nix. I read the Keys to the Kingdom series in middle school. That was my first introduction to him. And I really love his world building, and I like his world building style. I haven't reread any of his books in a while, so I can't think of specific examples off the top of my head, but I always remember thinking that his worlds were just really unique and really like well set up, and I just really liked his world building. So I took a lot of inspiration from that. And the third one, of course, would be Robert Jordan. The Wheel of Time series has been hugely influential on my writing. I really like writing with a big cast of characters, but until I read those books, I always really struggled with kind of finding something for everyone to do. I would either have one main character who did all the fun things, and then 10 of his friends who kind of just followed him around and really weren't important enough, or I would have 10 completely different plots going on, and it was just chaos. But after reading the Wheel of Time series, it really helped me kind of understand how to have a big cast of characters, have a lot of different things going on at once, but not be too hectic, and to kind of find that balance. Question number 11. Do you schedule your writing sessions or simply get to them whenever you can find the time? I wouldn't say that I schedule them, but I do plan them in my day. Like, I don't have a default, okay, between this time and this time every day I'm writing, but I always make a to-do list of everything for the day, or like the night before I set up my to-do list, and if I know I want to get writing done that day, I always make sure to have it on there, and then as I'm going about my day, I just find it a lot easier to make time for it when I do it like that. Question number 12. Do you type on a computer, typewriter, write everything by hand, or use a blend of those? And where do you write in general? So when I'm initially planning a story, I like writing it out by hand. The story concept, the first kind of things I have in mind for it, my like very, very early outlining stages, I always do all of that by hand. As far as actual writing the story, I always do that on a computer. I just find that so much easier. And as far as where do I write, I'd say like 90% at my computer desk. Sometimes I'll be on my laptop in the living room, but not often. And question 13, what are you most looking forward to now that you're part of AuthorTube? I love the AuthorTube community, especially in November around NaNoWriMo, because so many of us are writing things and being stressed out all together at the same time, and it's just so nice. I find AuthorTube a really inspiring and motivating place, because there's all these other people at all different stages of different works in progress, and there's so many people that are working on their first book, and so many people that are about to start querying, and there's so many people that, you know, have already published a handful of books and now are moving on to something else or sharing knowledge. And it's just such a great community that I think it's a really great place to grow as a writer. And another thing that I'm really looking forward to is the accountability. For example, editing my camp story right now, I kind of just wasn't in the mood to do it. Like, I still wanted to, I just didn't quite have the motivation to do it. But then I remembered, I was like, well, I've already announced that I'm doing it. I've already made a couple of videos. If I just stop, everyone's gonna know that I gave up on it, so I have to keep going. And I find that accountability is really important for writing. It's something that I think I really need, and AuthorTube is just one big accountability platform, so now I have to write. So yeah, I would say the community, the inspiration that comes along with it, and the accountability. So that was the last question. Again, I'm going to leave all of the questions typed out down below, as well as a link to the original video. If you're also new to the AuthorTube community and have done this tag or want to do this tag, please let me know. I would love to watch it. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button so I know. And if you want to follow along on this writing journey and see where this channel takes me, don't forget to subscribe so you can stay up to date. So I hope to see you guys next time, and until then, have a great day. Bye!